Welcome to Deep Sleep History, where ancient stories are told in gentle, unhurried rhythms to guide you into a deep and peaceful sleep. Tonight, allow your mind to soften, your shoulders to loosen, and your breath to grow calm and steady. In this quiet darkness, we will drift through time together, touching civilizations that have slept beneath the earth for thousands of years. Just lie down, relax, and let history lull you into dreams. In the heart of a Central American night, a stone drum echoes softly, thok, 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 like the heartbeat of an ancient forest. Without warning, you are drawn straight into a Maya ritual as it begins, where darkness, fire, and sound weave together into a scene both majestic and haunting. Torches rise high, their flames stretching long golden paths across the stone walls. Through a thin veil of smoke, a colossal structure slowly reveals itself, a stepped pyramid, rising above the canopy like a mountain carved by human faith and human strength. A conch shell flute cries out, high, spiraling, and eerie. At the base of the pyramid, a procession climbs step by step. Warriors with painted faces, dancers draped in brilliant feathers, priests in long robes holding bundles of incense. The smoke curls in soft loops, slipping through the air like spirits following in their wake. At the summit, a priest stands motionless, his face lit by the wavering torchlight. In his hand glints a blade of obsidian, black, sharp, and sacred, a symbol of the power to open a passage between humans and the gods. The drumbeat quickens. The flute stretches into a trembling note. The entire forest seems to hold its breath. And in that suspended moment, a question flashes through your mind, swift, vivid, almost intoxicating. Who were these people? How did cities so magnificent rise from the depths of the jungle? And what lies beyond this mysterious ritual unfolding in the deepest night? The story of the Maya begins here, in this instant where shadow, pyramid, and starlight merge, opening the doorway to a civilization of breathtaking wonder. As the sound of the jungle drums slowly fades into the darkness, as the torchlight atop the pyramid becomes nothing more than a distant glimmer in the sea of trees, you begin to sense something. To truly understand the Maya, we must step back, farther. We must leave the mysterious ritual behind and stand quietly before the vast landscape where this civilization was born. For the people who built pyramids deep in the night forest did not appear out of nowhere. They came from a very particular land, a land where nature rarely gives anything easily, yet somehow nurtured one of the most complex civilizations in human history. Imagine yourself stepping out of the ritual's shadow as gently as a breath. The world around you opens up. First light is rising at the horizon, and then the entire Maya world reveals itself. The Maya, land of forests, of limestone, and of limitless blue sky. Before you stretches an endless carpet of dense jungle, so thick and deep it seems to have no path. Layers of trees stack upon one another like unmoving waves. The canopy glitters with leftover night dew, shimmering like countless tiny jewels handed down by the sky. Wind slips through leaves as large as a person's arm, creating a soft, steady hum, like a whispered lullaby from nature itself, the same lullaby that once lulled countless ancient Maya families to sleep. You take a slow, quiet breath. The air of Central America's rainforests carries the scent of damp earth, rotting wood, resin, and something wild, like a call from humanity's earliest days. Now, look down. Beneath this lush canopy, the soil is thin, and the ground beneath is limestone, porous, dry, and stubborn. Digging is difficult, farming is harder, holding water is nearly impossible. There are no great rivers like the Nile or the Tigris, no vast, fertile plains, no snowmelt bringing fresh silt every year. A demanding land, an unforgiving land. Yet it was here that the Maya lived for thousands of years. You slow your steps as though wandering through the Earth's own memory. Far ahead, low hills rise and disappear beneath the forest waves. Deep caves open where water has seeped through stone for centuries, forming hidden underground pools, cenotes, glistening like the secret eyes of the earth. The Maya believed these waters were gateways to the underworld, Xibalba. But before anything else, they were lifelines. For in a land without great rivers, these cenotes were the precious water sources that kept them alive, allowing them to grow maize, raise families, and build stone cities so vast that the world centuries later could hardly believe they existed. Can you imagine it? A mighty civilization that fed millions, without major rivers, without iron tools, without wheels in daily life, without oxen or horses to plow fields, and yet they built structures whose tops touched the starry sky. Unbelievable. And yet, every step you take through this forest reveals the truth. The Maya survived not because life was easy, but because they were endlessly resilient and brilliantly inventive. You walk on, the forest thins, sunlight trickles down in golden specks like tiny falling stars. And then, before you lies a wide clearing, a flat space that feels as though the jungle has quietly stepped aside to make room for humans. This was once a Maya plaza, a social center, a place where, thousands of years ago, the sound of footsteps, laughter, conversations, and the rhythm of grinding maize filled the air each day. But now, only wind moves across the stone slabs, only moss climbs the walls, everything is asleep. And yet, within this stillness, it feels as though the civilization never truly vanished. It is simply breathing at a very slow rhythm. You lift your gaze. Far off, a smaller pyramid appears, less grand than the one from the ritual. To the left, a flat stone platform, perhaps once an altar for statues of the gods. To the right, low walls, maybe the home of a priest or a noble. Everything is covered in a gentle green haze of moss, still, soft, as soothing as a whisper from the earth. Cities like this were scattered across the Maya world, so many that even in the 20th century, satellites scanning the forests continued to discover huge hidden structures no human had seen for thousands of years. A deep jungle empire, vast, quiet, concealed. You inhale deeply. The air feels warmer, lighter, as though guiding your mind into a drifting, calm state. Because to understand the forests, the limestone, the sky, and the Maya land itself is to understand the foundation from which every miracle of this civilization grew. From tiny villages where a few families planted maize, to stone cities rising like anchored ships in a sea of trees, everything began on this land that offered little yet enough for extraordinary people to create wonders. And now, with the forest light guiding you, the sky opening above, and your feet standing steady in the Maya world, we can turn the first page of this story. Where did the Maya come from? How did they appear in such a harsh landscape? Who were the first people to lay the stones of a legendary civilization? As you remain standing in that open clearing beneath the deep green canopy, where a flat stone platform lies quiet under the soft morning sun, a gentle realization drifts through you. For these cities to exist, for pyramids to rise out of the endless jungle, there must have been beginnings, tiny, distant beginnings, like a faint spark before it grows into flame. And to find that spark, you must walk backward through time, slowly, deeply, back to an age when the forest was even quieter than now, when there were no drums, no painted warriors, no pyramids piercing the treetops. Only small human beings living close to the ground, blending into the wilderness, unaware that their footsteps would one day lead to a legendary civilization. At first, everything was so simple it was barely a dot on the vast tapestry of time. Picture a morning from an age long gone. Dew still clings thick to the leaves. Sunlight filters through the forest in pale, slanting beams. A small group of people moves across the terrain, carrying stone tools, baskets of seeds, and children sleeping on their mothers' backs. They do not think of themselves as founders of an era. They are simply searching for new land where maize can grow. And maize, those small golden kernels, would become the key that unlocks the entire history of the Maya. Maize did not originate with the Maya. It was the result of thousands of years of indigenous people domesticating a wild grass. but the Maya placed it at the center of their world. Imagine it. In the beginning, there were only tiny fields cut along the forest edge, patches of land cleared by fire, smoke drifting lightly into the wind. A few people planted seeds into the thin layer of limestone soil, then sat and watched green shoots emerge. That was the opening moment. Every civilization has a moment like that, small, quiet, unrecognized, yet forever changing the course of human life. Once maize could sustain families, they began building simple homes of wood, palm leaves, and packed earth, houses that looked as though the forest could swallow them whole, tiny islands among waves of trees. Yet at night the firelight inside each home flickered like the beating heart of a village slowly growing. Small villages connected to one another. They exchanged seeds, tools, pottery, and they began forming their earliest leaders, not kings, but elders with experience. Those who could read the sky, who knew when to burn fields, when to harvest. All of it happened under the quiet breath of the forest. No records, no writing, only footprints and fragments of pottery left behind. Yet nature did something remarkable. With every generation, people understood the forest a little more. They learned where the soil was slightly better. They discovered how to channel water from underground pools. They learned to track seasons by the sun and moon. And they began raising elevated platforms, the earliest foundations of what would later become great stone structures. History does not erupt. It whispers, soft as mist, steady as breath. Then something happened that shifted everything. Along the Gulf Coast of Mexico, centuries before the Maya reached their golden age, an older civilization thrived, the Olmec. If the Maya are starlit nights and forest pyramids, then the Olmec are colossal basalt heads, the earliest ceremonial centers, the first ideas of kingship and gods. And slowly, naturally, influences from the Olmec drifted southward, not loudly, not through conquest, but like moonlight gliding across a lake, leaving shimmering reflections behind. The earliest Maya learned how to organize rituals. They began constructing small plazas. They learned to arrange sacred space, east, west, north, south. And most importantly, they learned to build foundations. Stone foundations, the backbone of every Maya city for the next 1,000 years. Here, time feels slower, softer, as though we're seeing the past through a veil of mist, each step a little blurry but warm. And then, as the mist thins, a colossal shape emerges, El Mirador, the great pre-classic city-state, astonishing even today. Imagine this. Around 300 BCE, deep in a forest, with no roads, no metal tools, no wheeled transport, the Maya built pyramid complexes larger than those of their later classical era. A city so vast it would take days to walk from one district to another. Thousands of people gathered in plazas. Temple platforms towered skyward with long, steep staircases. Stone carvings showed the sun, the serpent gods, and rulers. And all of it swallowed by jungle for centuries, hidden so completely that modern humans needed satellites to rediscover its shape. What made El Mirador extraordinary was not only its size, but what it meant. From scattered villages, the Maya had stepped into an age of their first major power centers. The seeds of civilization had sprouted. You close your eyes for a moment. Images shift, from tiny villages to early shrines to the massive platforms of El Mirador, turning slowly like pages in a book. When you open your eyes, you're already standing somewhere new. In the era where these early centers will ignite into cities that shine like constellations scattered across the jungle. An era soon to be known as the Golden Age. But before we enter the glory of Tikal, Calakmul, or Palenque, let your heart settle into the scene unfolding around you. Morning mist drapes over the deep forest. Sunlight climbs the tops of pyramids. Birdsong echoes through the valleys, and stone cities emerge like floating islands upon a sea of trees. This is the moment the Maya step into the most radiant chapter of their history. The transition from the pre-classic era to the classic period was like watching the night slowly dissolve, revealing the first pale light of dawn spreading across the deep forest. As you step away from El Mirador, mist still clinging to your hair, the world ahead opens like a vast canvas painted by both nature and human hands. And here, the Maya enter their most radiant age, the Classic period, the time when the Central American jungle suddenly became home to cities so grand and sophisticated that future generations would fall silent before them. Let us begin with a morning in Tikal, one of the greatest capitals the Maya ever built. Morning fog is always so thick that you can barely see the ground a few steps ahead. The rainforest murmurs softly as palm leaves brush against one another, while stone pillars, stairways, and broad plazas seem to float in a white sea of mist. But then the sun rises. The first golden beams slip through the canopy and strike the pyramids rising out of the haze. The temples of Tikal appear like stone islands drifting in an ocean of clouds. In that moment, nature and architecture fuse in a beauty so profound, you feel even time itself has paused to gaze. The towering temples, Temple 1, Temple 2, Temple 5, stand straight toward the sky like stone spears. Their summits were once painted red, white, and green, reflecting the sun so brilliantly they appeared like pillars of fire above the emerald forest. The Maya did not build pyramids merely as tombs or displays of power. They built them to connect the three layers of the universe, the heavens, the earth, and the underworld. To the Maya, each temple was a cosmic axis, a place where gods could descend and humans could ascend, meeting in sacred ceremonies. Beneath the pyramids lie broad plazas paved with white limestone. When the sun rises, the light reflects off the stone so intensely that the entire city seems silver-plated. Long roadways called sakbi stretch straight as white ribbons through the jungle, linking city to city, an astonishing transportation network created in an age without wheeled vehicles. Then come the palaces. Unlike European grand halls, Maya palaces are low, sprawling stone block complexes, room connected to room, corridor to corridor. Their walls were coated with stucco, then painted red, or carved with reliefs depicting victories, coronations, and divine myths. Many buildings were adorned with massive masks, faces of the sun god, the Maize god, or creatures half human, half beast, all magnified in form, both imposing and fluid in the graceful lines of Maya artistry. From those corridors, you might hear children laughing, the rhythmic pounding of maize being ground in nearby homes, and occasionally the call of a conch shell from a distant ceremony. The scent of roasted maize blending with wood smoke and forest blossoms gives the air a soft, incense-like sweetness. In Palenque, another great city, the artistry becomes even more refined. On its stone panels, the carvings are as delicate as strokes of a brush. The Temple of the Cross, the Temple of the Moon, and especially the Temple of the Inscriptions stand like monumental chapters in a giant stone book the Maya left behind. The reliefs depicting King Pakal and the gods are not only beautiful, but deeply symbolic. Every hand gesture, each cloak, every pattern on a belt holds meaning. No line is accidental. In Copan, famous for its hieroglyphic stairway, each carved step seems to echo with stories. Here, an entire royal history is inscribed along the steps of a pyramid. When people walked upon them, they were literally walking across the story of their ancestors. And Calakmul, Tikal's eternal rival, lies hidden deeper in the jungle, so immense that even today much of it remains unexcavated. Imagine a city covering hundreds of square kilometers, with hundreds of structures and thousands of homes, all slowly swallowed by the forest. Yet, in its golden age, it blazed with ritual fire, warriors' cries, music, and torchlight. The Classic period was not merely a time of construction, it was when the Maya became masters of architecture, urban planning, art, and knowledge. A time when the night sky was a book, the sun a calendar, the jungle a fortress, and limestone the pen with which they carved their entire world view. If you were to stand atop a Classic-era pyramid on a clear night, you would notice something remarkable. Many temples align perfectly with the sunrise or sunset, during solstices and equinoxes, not by chance, not by intuition, but the result of generations observing the heavens, noting patterns, and calculating with an extraordinarily complex calendar system. The Maya did not build cities merely to live in them. They built cities to speak with the gods. And when mighty states like Tikal and Calakmul looked up at the sky, they were not just gazing, they were reading it. They chose coronation days, battle days, offering days, based on the movements of the heavens. Everything in life, and from warfare to harvest, followed the rhythm of the cosmos. It is a wondrous harmony, a forest civilization with the mind of astronomers. Now, close your eyes for a moment. Imagine the morning mist lifting from Tikal, revealing temple tops. Hear the distant forest. Smell the limestone warming under the rising sun. Feel a civilization awakening, radiant, powerful, yet as gentle as the forest's breath. Because after this part, once we understand the world they built, we will go deeper into the world of the Maya people, their classes, their daily life, and the heartbeat of society at its golden height. As sunlight slowly spread across the ancient temple tops of Tikal, and the morning mist dissolved to reveal a plaza smooth as a mirror, you begin to sense more clearly the breath of a living Maya city. The towering temples, palaces, ball courts, and carved stone monuments form the great skeleton of the city, but its soul lies in its people, the king, nobles, priests, warriors, artisans, and thousands of tireless farmers. Together, they shaped a society so intricate and resilient that it endured for centuries in the heart of the rainforest. Standing on a high stone step of the great temple, you would see that Maya society consisted of many layers, yet these layers were not rigid or separate. Instead, they intertwined like the roots of a massive ceiba tree, strong, flexible, and essential to the stability of the entire civilization. At the very top stood the king, known by sacred titles such as Ajao or Kuhul Ajao, meaning Holy Lord. He was not merely a ruler, he was the bridge between humans and the divine. During ceremonies, he stood before the sun, before Chak the rain god, the Maize god, and the moon goddess. Every drop of royal blood offered in ritual was believed to keep the universe in balance. A morning in the king's life might unfold like this. Just as the sun began to rise over the jungle, he stepped out from his palace, wearing a cloak embroidered with precious feathers, a tall headdress adorned with jade and gold. The air was still cool, yet people already gathered in the plaza below. He did not hurry. Every step was measured and deliberate, because each movement was part of a sacred performance. To his people, he was not simply a man, he was the embodiment of cosmic order. Right below the king was the noble class, priests, scholars, high-ranking warriors, and scribes who could write hieroglyphs and read the movement of the stars. They helped the king govern, organized ceremonies, led armies, negotiated alliances, and created the stone monuments that recorded wars, coronations, and major events. Inside dim palace chambers, nobles and scribes worked by the light of small lamps, writing on bark paper books with bone styluses. They wrote when an event happened, when a king died, when the Adiko, heavens shifted in an important cycle. These records allow us to understand the Maya world long after it vanished beneath the forest canopy. Descending to the lower terraces, you find the lives of the middle class, artisans, potters, jewelers, jade mask makers, builders, and stone carvers. Their hands shaped everything around you: glossy red ceramics, elaborate stucco masks, and the monumental facades of temples. They were not nobles, but their skill determined the beauty and durability of Maya cities. At the base of the pyramid lived the true heartbeat of Maya civilization, the farmers. They made up the majority of the population and were the reason Maya cities could exist at all. Without farmers, there would be no maize, no cacao, no beans, no squash, no food for armies, no offerings for the gods, and no energy to build pyramids. Their day began before sunrise in the cool darkness of the forest. With stone tools in hand, they walked along narrow pathways to their cornfields. As the sun rose and the mist cleared, they cleared land, planted seeds, tended crops, or harvested maize. Lunch was simple: a tortilla, perhaps a bit of chili, or a sip of cacao. Yet their persistence sustained the entire Maya world. Farmers wore no fine clothes, no jade ornaments, and their names did not appear on stone monuments, but they were the foundation of everything. Without them, there was no king, no ceremony, no towering temple. Living among them, you would feel the rhythm of a society built on mutual dependence. The king needed the people needed water, water depended on rain, rain depended on the gods, and the gods depended on ritual. A perfect circle in which every layer was a vital link. Another subtle yet powerful presence in this social tapestry was the role of women. Beyond weaving and caretaking, noble women served as political bridges between city-states. A Maya princess could lead major ceremonies, perform bloodletting rituals, or embody the alliance between two powerful kingdoms. By late afternoon, as sunlight filtered through the canopy and cast shifting patterns over plazas and temples, the structure of Maya society no longer seemed like a simple hierarchy. It felt more like an intricate woven network, each person, king or farmer, bound to others by the lifeblood of the forest, the limestone earth, and the ever-present gods. Understanding how Maya society functioned opens the door to the next part of the story, their cosmology, the gods, the heavens, and the mysterious underworld they believed lay beneath our feet. As you leave the plaza where kings and farmers together shaped the heartbeat of the city, a clear realization settles into your mind. Maya society was not built solely from stone, maize, and labor. It was upheld by an invisible world, one the Maya believed ran parallel to everyday life. To truly understand them, you must step into that world, a universe where sky, earth, and the deepest darkness are connected by invisible pillars, a universe filled with gods, symbols, and laws that often leave modern observers in awe. Imagine yourself walking along a stone-paved path as the afternoon light falls gently on moss-covered walls. Ahead, the forest opens into a wide clearing. Sunlight filters through the canopy in glimmering golden drops, dancing with the wind. And there, at the center of that quiet space, a giant ceiba tree rises. In Maya belief, the ceiba tree was the axis of the cosmos. Its trunk stood tall and straight like a spear piercing the heavens, its vast canopy spread like the shade of the gods, its thick roots twisted like stone serpents, dug deep into the cool, dark earth. When the Maya looked at a ceiba, they saw the entire universe revealed before them. The treetop belonged to the gods above. The trunk represented the human world. The roots marked the entrance to Xibalba, the underworld of shadows, trials, and wandering souls. Close your eyes for a moment. Let the wind brush your face, soft and even. Imagine standing beneath that ceiba tree, listening to the forest breathe. When you open your eyes again, the Maya cosmos begins to take shape. High above lived the great deities, Itzamna, the supreme creator, Kinichahau, the sun god who brought light and life to the forests, to the maize fields, and to every household, the moon goddess, tied to cycles of fertility, and the deity of Venus, whose appearance foretold war and important omens. Yet the gods most intimate to daily Maya life, woven into every breath and every meal, were the maize god and the rain god. Maize did not merely feed them, it defined a part of who they were. The Maya believed humans were fashioned from corn dough, shaped by divine hands. Every meal carried a quiet sacredness. When morning fire crackled in the hearth and the smell of roasting maize drifted through the air, the Maya felt they were living in the embrace of the gods. The maize god was pictured as a youthful figure with a corn-shaped headdress, delicate face, and slender body like tender leaves. In Maya art, he appeared beside sprouting plants, flowing water, and radiant sunlight. He was not distant or fearsome. He lived in every seed, every harvest, every healthy newborn. If the maize god was the heart of life, then Chak, the rain god, was the force that kept it beating. Chak was depicted with a lightning axe, round eyes, and a long curled nose like a serpent's snout. With a single swing of his axe, he could split the sky and release the rains. Rain was so vital that every drop was seen as a divine gift. Imagine a Maya afternoon, Dark clouds gathering on the horizon, a change in the scent of the wind, moisture thickening in the air. The first rumble of thunder echoes through the trees. At that moment, the Maya believed Chak had struck the sky. Cornfields waited desperately for water. Families lifted their faces and whispered prayers when the first raindrops tapped the palm roofs and splashed onto the earth, forming small, expanding circles. They felt their faith answered, not through miracles, but through the intimate bond between the human world and the divine. The Maya cosmos did not exist only in stories or trees. It was embedded in their cities. Every pyramid was a miniature cosmic pillar connecting sky and earth. Every plaza was a place where the divine could descend if rituals were performed at the right moment. Every orientation, east, west, north, south, held sacred meaning. Morning belonged to the rising sun, symbolizing birth. Evening belonged to the setting sun, symbolizing death and renewal. Temple tops aligned with the stars, temple foundations aligned with the underworld. Time did not move in a straight line, but in circles, like the endless cycle of wet and dry seasons. What made the Maya worldview extraordinary was this seamless blend of nature and spirituality. There was no clear boundary between the real and the sacred. Rain was both weather and blessing. Maize was both food and human essence. Pyramids were both architecture and cosmic bridges. You walk a few more steps. The forest grows darker as the sun sinks. Cool wind slips through the leaves. The sounds of the jungle shift, softer, deeper. This was the hour the Maya believed the veil between worlds thinned. The gods could hear more clearly. Humans could feel the unseen more vividly. By understanding the Sabitree, the maize god, the rain god, and the layered worlds of sky, earth, and Xibalba, you have moved one step closer to the Maya heart. For it was this belief that shaped their sacred rituals, rituals filled with devotion, symbolism, and at times profound mystery. And now a gentle question arises. If the universe needed nourishment, if the gods required attention, what did humans have to do to maintain this fragile balance? The answer awaits in the next chapter, the rituals, blood, prayer, and the sacred offerings of the Maya. When night falls over the deep forest, when the ceiba leaves stop trembling and the sky seems draped in a soft black veil, you can feel a very real shift. The air grows thicker, sounds turn hazy, and the boundary between the human world and the realm of the gods seems to thin with every passing breath. This is the hour of Maya rituals. The rituals that, though they have slept for thousands of years, still seem to chill the mist whenever their names are spoken. The Maya believed the universe did not run on its own. The sun rose only when fed. Rain fell only when invited. Crops flourished only when the gods were nourished, and the offering the gods cherished most was blood. But this idea was not born from blind violence. It came from a sincere belief that life must be exchanged for life. To receive blessings, humans had to give a part of themselves, and so at times, the king and queen were the first to offer their blood. Imagine a Maya evening. The wind is barely moving. Incense smoke drifts in thin threads, curling like small, wandering spirits around the ritual ground. Torches burn in shades of orange and gold, their trembling light falling across carved stone walls. In the ceremonial courtyard, everything grows quiet. You can hear the tiny crackle of incense grains in the fire, the whisper of fabric brushing stone, the slow breaths of people standing in formation. The queen steps forward first. Her long woven mantle is decorated with bright blue-green feathers. Her black hair is tied high, adorned with jade ornaments glowing softly in the torchlight. She sits on a small mat, her back perfectly straight, her face serene, so serene you cannot tell whether it is courage or the calm learned from dozens of ceremonies before. The king stands behind her, holding an object sacred to Maya rituals, the sharpened spine of a stingray, long, thin, glistening like bone in the firelight, fragile in shape but sharp as a blade. No one speaks, no one cries, no one trembles. For them, this is not pain, it is reverence. The queen lifts a thin cord woven from plant fibers. She raises the stingray's spine, and then, slowly, Deliberately, with a precision that makes the wind itself hold its breath, she cuts her tongue. A line of red appears. It does not spray. It does not rush. It rises gently, as though each drop wishes to be offered at the perfect moment. She pulls the cord through the wound. The fiber darkens, faint red, then deeper, then a rich crimson. With each pass of the cord through the cut, she takes a long breath. No cry of pain. Only the soft beat of distant drums and the rustling of forest leaves as witnesses. The Maya called this ritual bloodletting, the sacred self-offering. They believed that in this moment the queen's spirit opened a doorway between humans and the divine. Blood did not simply fall to the ground. It soaked into strips of bark paper prepared beforehand, which were then burned. Smoke rose straight into the night sky, and the Maya believed the gods were eating. The king performed his own offering as well, often cutting his ears or other parts of his skin. His blood was considered more potent, more spiritual, for he was the bridge between worlds. If you stood inside such a ritual, the shiver running down your spine would not come from gore, but from how calm it all is. Everything is slow, deliberate, sacred. You feel as though you have stepped into another world, one where pain is a prayer and blood is a divine language. But not all rituals ended with self-offering. On great nights, when rain was needed, when war loomed, when a new cosmic cycle began, the Maya performed sacrifices of war captives. Yet even then, the Maya did not kill recklessly. Every act followed rules. Every gesture belonged to a ritual woven with music, incense, and whispered invocations. The priest stood at the center, holding a blade of black obsidian, glossy, perfect, and so sharp it could split flesh with a breath. But the act was not meant as cruelty. It was part of maintaining balance among cosmic layers. Those sacrificed were often strong warriors taken in battle, believed to carry great power. Their deaths were not meant to dishonor them, but to offer their strength to the gods. The eeriest part was not the act itself, but the atmosphere. The steady heartbeat of drums, the long, wavering notes of flutes like cold wind, the crackling of torches, and the absolute silence of the witnesses. A silence so thick you feel it resting against your skin. And when the ritual ended, the Maya did not recoil in fear. They believed they had helped the sun rise the next morning, helped the rain fall on the fields, helped the world avoid collapse. To them, the ritual was not horror. It was duty, a sacred obligation, sometimes fulfilled with their own pain. As you walk out of the ceremonial courtyard, the night breeze carries the scent of forest flowers, incense smoke, and a faint breath of Xibalba, the underworld. A soft chill lingers, like a shadow brushing past your thoughts before fading into the dark. You have just touched the deepest part of Maya spirituality. And this spirituality leads to another wonder: their writing. Those mysterious symbols carved into stone and bark, holding the soul of an entire civilization. When the night ritual ends, when the incense smoke fades into the wind and the torches go out one by one, you step out of the sacred courtyard with a feeling that's hard to describe. It's as if you've just walked through a doorway between two worlds, leaving behind the steady beat of drums and the faint chill of the gods returning to their sleep in the darkness. But the Maya did not speak to their gods only through blood and ritual. They also left messages for the future, words carved directly into stone and bark, so their voices would never disappear. This is the Maya script. As you walk under the dim moonlight and look up at a moss-covered stela, you notice round shapes, square shapes, soft curves, spirals, some resembling human faces, animal faces, feathers, serpent scales, droplets of water, suns or forms with no name at all. These designs are not decoration, they are writing. And this writing tells stories. Stop in front of a tall stone stela and feel its cool surface. Beneath the thin layer of moss, each carved line is still sharp. Some lines flow like water, some are pointed like spear tips, and others curl like serpents. Maya sculptors did not merely carve letters, they carved living images of speech. Each character is a small block, called a glyph. A single glyph can hold a sound, a word, a meaning, or an entire compressed story. When you look at it, you might think you're seeing artwork, but in truth, you're looking at one of the most complex writing systems of the ancient world. In the moonlight, Maya glyphs resemble hundreds of tiny eyes opening, quietly watching you, as if whispering, "We were here. We lived, we loved, we fought, we worshipped, we counted the stars, and this is our story." The Maya carved their script not only on stone, they also wrote in books made from bark paper, codices. These books were thin and light, folded like an accordion. On their pages, black and red brushstrokes flowed like water, telling of gods, astronomy, agricultural cycles, rituals, and medicine. Under the soft glow of an oil lamp in an ancient Maya room, a codex would reflect the light like something breathing. Each page, a universe. Each stroke of ink, a timeline. Sadly, most of these books were burned after the Spanish arrived. Only a few rare ones survive today: the Dresden Codex, Madrid Codex, Paris Codex, and Grolier Codex. They sit in distant libraries now, yet their souls still belong to the Maya forests. Imagine a modern scholar in a quiet museum room, leaning over one of these ancient pages under a warm yellow lamp. His hand trembles slightly as he traces ink laid down over 1,000 years ago. Suddenly, a glyph unfolds like a door, revealing the name of a king, the year he ascended the throne, a battle, a bloodletting ritual, or an eclipse the Maya once observed. To read Maya script is to decode the voice of an ancient soul. It feels like speaking with someone who died a millennium ago. But Maya writing did more than record events. It recorded time, and time, to the Maya, was an entire labyrinth. Many glyphs represent numbers, yet these numbers don't march from 1 to 10 the way ours do. They circle, repeat, turn like gears in a cosmic machine. The Maya script reveals that, for them, everything was cyclical. Seasons, wars, rituals, lives. Nothing truly ended. Everything transformed. What's remarkable is that Maya writing is beautiful, not a gentle beauty, but a deep, mysterious, living beauty. Look long enough, and you feel the glyphs subtly moving, a curve stretching, an animal face opening its eyes, a spiral rippling like a wave. Not imagination. The writing was created to be alive. The Maya believed each glyph carried the soul of the writer and the soul of the one being written about. Some master carvers spent entire lifetimes creating a single stela. Every chisel strike had rhythm. The work was not just labor, it was ritual. Many stelae were placed so that on solstices or equinoxes, sunlight would strike a specific line of text. In that brief moment, the glyphs shimmered as though waking from a long sleep. Picture it: a quiet morning, mist covering the plaza, the year's first sunlight falling onto a stone face, a row of glyphs glowing softly like pale fire. Stand close enough, and you could swear you hear the wind shift, as if the writing itself is breathing. Maya text also reveals deeper truths: how they thought, how they saw the world, how they bound history to the divine. Through their writing, we know the names of kings who won and who lost, the dates of coronations, earthquakes, eclipses, and even years of drought. These facts were not kept in modern books. They were kept in stone, kept in the forest, kept on stelae tall as a person, standing alone among fallen leaves like silent sentinels of time. As you walk deeper into the forest, sunlight slipping through the leaves onto ancient glyphs, you feel as though you're wandering through a library without a ceiling, where the books are trees, stone, wind, and earth. And in understanding Maya writing, you begin to understand something essential about this civilization. They were people who recorded everything. And they recorded not to boast, but to preserve their world. Yet there is one thing they documented with unmatched devotion: time. The way they counted time, divided time, felt time, was unlike anything we know. After standing for a long time before those stone stelae full of symbols, after imagining the hands of Maya artisans carefully carving every line into the cold stone, you begin to realize something important. Many of these signs do not simply record kings' names or wars or rituals. They are speaking about something invisible, yet something that governed every rhythm of Maya life. That something is time. For us, time is usually a straight line: yesterday, today, tomorrow. The past lies behind us. The future lies ahead. But to the Maya, time was a series of circles, interlocking wheels turning steadily, repeating yet moving forward, slow but certain. Imagine 3 enormous gears before you, turning very slowly. Each gear carries numbers, names, symbols. As they rotate and fit into one another, they generate each day, each year, each cosmic cycle. This is how the Maya read time. The first gear, small but sacred, is the Tzolk'in, a cycle of 260 days. Picture a circle with 2 rotating sequences, 13 numbers and 20 day names. As the numbers cycle from 1 to 13, the 20 names rotate as well. The pairing of one number with one name creates a unique day. When every possible combination has appeared, the 260-day cycle ends and begins again. For the Maya, each Tzolk'in day had its own personality. Some days were auspicious for planting, some for rituals, some for childbirth, and some were days when people avoided beginning important tasks. Priests who specialized in the calendar memorized each day's nature, the way a healer memorizes herbs and heartbeats. Imagine a Maya morning. A young mother carrying her newborn visits the village priest. He checks the number, the name, the position of the day in the Tzolk'in cycle, then speaks softly about the child's temperament and the path that might suit them. No thunder from the sky, no dramatic prophecy, only quiet words drawn from the turning of an invisible gear. The second gear, larger and tied to real life, is the Hab calendar, the Maya solar year of 365 days. Though similar to our solar year, its structure is beautifully distinct. The Hab contained 18 months, each with 20 days. 18 times 20 equals 360. The remaining 5 days formed a separate, peculiar period called Wayeb, a time considered unstable, fragile, like the seam between 2 pieces of cloth. The Maya believed that during Wayeb, the boundary between worlds grew thin, gods stepped away from their posts, and humans were more vulnerable. People avoided major decisions, long journeys, and new beginnings. Only 5 days. But they carried the weight of mystery. The Hab months connected closely with seasons, crops, rains, and ceremonial preparations. At the start of each month, the Maya knew exactly where they stood within the year's cycle, when to burn fields, plant seeds, fill granaries, prepare celebrations. Each year formed a smooth circle, not a straight line. When Tzolk'in and Hab rotate together, they create extraordinarily complex combinations. A single day carries a Tzolk'in name and a Hab position. The 2 gears lock together like parts of a clock. After 52 Hab years, a particular combination repeats. The Maya considered this 52-year cycle significant, a full circle of life. Imagine an elderly Maya man sitting in his courtyard at dusk, realizing that today's combined date, the Tzolk'in name and the Hab position, matches the day he was born more than half a century ago. It would feel like meeting a younger version of himself, all because time has turned a full circle. But for events larger than a lifetime, the Maya needed something more, something to count far, far beyond memory. Thus they created the third gear, the long count. The long count tracks every single day since a mythic starting point, the day this world was believed to have begun. Instead of saying an event occurred in a certain month or year, the Maya recorded how many days had passed since creation. Time was divided into units: 1 kin, so 1 day; 20 kin, or 1 weanal, a short month; 18 weanal, or 1 tun, 360 days, roughly a year; 20 tun idarakiri or 1 katun, about 20 years; 20 katun idarakiri 1 baktun, about 400 years. Numbers flowed like dates in modern notation, except they used kin, weanal, tun, katun, baktun. When a unit filled, it rolled over to the next, just like how 9 turns to 10. On Maya stelae, you'll see combinations of dots and bars. 9 dots, 12 bars, 11 dots. That is the long count in motion. Through it, the Maya could record events with extraordinary precision, even across generations. And now, understanding the long count, you can easily understand a modern misunderstanding, the year 2012. People once claimed the Maya calendar ended on December 21st, 2012, that it marked Doomsday. Images of collapsing pyramids and a sky on fire filled movies and articles. Ask an ancient Maya, and they would probably smile gently. To them, it was not the end of everything. It was simply the closing of one very large Baktun and the beginning of another. Like turning a page in a thick book. No one says the book is burned. Time, to the Maya, never stops. It simply shifts cycles. The feeling is much like watching the sun set behind the forest. If you saw it only once, you might think it is an ending. But the Maya lived long enough with the sky to know the sun would rise again. One more turn. Repeating, but never identical. Their calendar wasn't a countdown to zero. It was a musical theme played in cycles, with new variations each time. Picture again the three slow-turning gears of time. The Maya lived attuned to those rhythms. They chose days for births, coronations, campaigns, temple constructions, rituals, all based on the ceaseless pairing of numbers and names. In the depths of the forest, with no clocks, no wall calendars, no phones, they crafted a temporal system so precise that modern scholars spent decades decoding it. And if you sit quietly in an ancient Maya plaza in your imagination, close your eyes, you might hear those gears turning softly, steady, slow, never hurried, like the breathing of the universe. Now that we understand how the Maya read time, how they sensed the heartbeat of sky and earth, we can take the next step, exploring how they watched the heavens themselves, how they tracked stars, the sun, and the moon, and how they shaped all of it into an astonishing body of astronomy. And that will be our next story. A Maya priest climbing a temple at night, watching Venus rise over the horizon and quietly recording what he sees. As the Maya's great gears of time finish their faint turning in your mind, you lift your head and realize there is another clock, far larger, far more intricate, hanging right above you. It is the night sky of the Central American rainforest, a quiet black sea filled with stars, filled with slow movements almost too subtle for the human eye to catch. And within that sea of stars, the Maya saw things that many other civilizations would not understand for centuries. They were the astronomers of the deep forest. Imagine a perfectly still night. No streetlights, no city glow, no cars, no noise from the modern world, only insects, the whisper of leaves, and starlight scattered across the canopy. At the top of the highest temple in the kingdom, a Maya priest sits quietly. He wears a dark ceremonial cloak, a bark paper tablet rests beside him, along with a bone stylus and a small pot of ink. Before him, the sky opens wide, like an endless book. He does not rush to observe. He waits. He waits for his eyes to adjust to the darkness, for his breath to match the breathing of the forest, for his mind to settle like still water. And then, the stars begin to emerge, one by one. In Maya civilization, the sky was never distant. It was where gods walked, where time left its invisible markings. The Maya knew where the sun rose and set through the seasons. They tracked the moon's phases. They followed the complex journey of Venus, studying it in more detail than even great powers like Egypt. To the Maya, Venus was not merely a bright point, it was a deity, a sign, a clock of cosmic rhythm. Many Maya stelae record Venus cycles every 584 days. They tracked each disappearance of Venus, each return, each shift from morning star to evening star. A full Venus cycle to them was a delicate turning between two worlds, light and shadow, victory and loss, prosperity and decline. Imagine this scene, a very deep night, a cold wind, a Maya priest sitting motionless. He waits until a faint spark appears on the eastern horizon. At first, only a dot, then brighter, then the familiar star he has followed for decades. He marks it with a symbol, a small stroke of ink indicating a new kin, a new day. Beside it, he writes the glyph of Venus, then another note, where it rose, when it appeared. Slow, disciplined, precise. Each astronomical priest was a living clock. They did not use the sky only as a calendar. They used it to guide rituals, warfare, harvests, coronations, and alliances. But Maya brilliance did not end with watching the heavens. They aligned their temples so that stone could merge with starlight. Structures like El Castillo at Chichen Itza were not built merely to impress. They were designed to synchronize with the cosmos. On the spring and autumn equinox, when the sun strikes the pyramid at the perfect angle, the shadows on the staircase form the body of a serpent slithering downward, Kukulkan, descending from the heavens. Imagine the moment, a wide, silent plaza, the sun lowering, light sliding across the steps, shadow forming jagged patterns like a giant serpent, light and darkness weaving together to bring the god to life. This was no accident. It was astronomy disguised as art. Across many Maya cities, observatories were built specifically to watch the sun, the moon, or particular stars through narrow windows or slits. In Uxmal, Pux, Copan, and beyond, temples were aligned precisely with sunrise on solstices or important star risings. Maya architecture was made of straight lines of stone, but arranged to align perfectly with straight lines of light, a fusion of material and knowledge that leaves modern observers in awe. The Maya also tracked solar and lunar eclipses with astonishing accuracy. When the sun disappeared, they did not panic like other civilizations often did. They already knew. They had calculated it. They recorded it. They understood it was part of the great cycle. In the surviving codices, you can see eclipse tables that look like professional astronomical charts. Every glyph, every stroke of ink represents generations of priests watching the night sky, night after night. They did not do this out of curiosity alone. They did it to keep the universe in balance. Because to the Maya, if the calendar shifted even slightly, crops might fail. If the ritual day was wrong, the gods might not receive their offerings. If war began at the wrong time, fate could turn against them. A Maya priest astronomer was not allowed to make mistakes. He lived quietly, ate little, spoke little. He spent most of his life watching the sky. Even when old, eyes dim, hands trembling, he climbed the temple every night to record each small movement. When he died, his knowledge lived on, not through words alone, but through glyphs, codices, temples, and stone alignments. Every structure was a cosmic notebook. And if you stand on a Maya temple at night, you might feel as if someone is still sitting beside you, silently watching the stars. A faint shadow of an ancient priest, a quiet breath from someone who spent a lifetime listening to the turning of the heavens. Now that you have seen how the Maya read each star, you begin to understand how they survived with such large populations, despite living in dense forests with no major rivers, no draft animals, no plows. They understood weather. They understood cycles. They knew when rain would come. And this leads us to the next part. How did the Maya feed millions in a rainforest? After the long nights when Maya priests sat atop temple summits watching the sky, after the meticulous recordings of stars, the sun, and the calendar, you may find yourself wondering, how could a civilization thrive so brilliantly in the vast rainforest, where soil is poor, no great rivers like the Nile or Euphrates flow, and almost no animals can be domesticated? And yet, the Maya did it. They did not merely survive. They built great cities and fed millions. The answer lies in how they treated the land, the water, maize, the soul of their civilization, and cacao, the drink of nobles and gods. Imagine stepping into a Maya village at dawn. Sunlight slips through tall tree canopies and falls onto thatched roofs. You smell damp earth, the faint scent of last night's firewood, and a thin layer of morning mist drifting just above the ground. Children run along narrow dirt paths. Somewhere nearby, the rhythmic sound of maize being ground echoes softly. Maize is the foundation of everything. The Maya lived by maize, breathed by maize, understood the world through maize. They believed that humans were created from corn dough shaped by the gods. So planting maize was not merely labor, it was ritual. But the rainforest soil of Central America is notoriously poor. How did they grow enough maize to feed entire cities? The Maya used a brilliantly adaptive technique: no deep plowing, no dense planting. They farmed using a mixed agricultural system called milpa. A milpa is like a living, rotating garden. Maize grows tall, beans climb the maize to reach sunlight, squash spreads across the ground to retain moisture and suppress weeds. These three plants feed one another and protect one another. Maize provides support, beans fix nitrogen in the soil, squash shields the earth and conserves water. No fertilizer, no draft animals, just profound ecological understanding. But maize cannot live without water. And the Maya rainforest has long, dry seasons, sometimes 6 months with no rain at all. This is where Maya ingenuity shines. They built vast reservoirs, channels, and artificial ponds, hydraulic systems of limestone engineering so complex that modern researchers are still astonished. At Tikal, hidden beneath the jungle and the towering temples, lies a network of reservoirs large enough to sustain a metropolis through the dry season. Walk beside a Maya reservoir, the water still as glass, and you feel the presence of ancient engineers. They understood water better than those living along great rivers, because in a place where water is scarce, every drop becomes sacred. Their next strategy was to build terraces in hilly regions, preventing soil erosion during heavy rains. These terraces are not as tall as those in Asia, but they preserve precious thin layers of topsoil. The Maya also dug nutrient-rich mud pits, mixing the mud into fields to rejuvenate exhausted land. Simple techniques, but remarkably effective. And then there is cacao. For the Maya, cacao was not just a noble drink, it was currency, an offering, a symbol of luxury and divinity. Imagine a quiet morning in a small earthen house. A Maya woman stirs a pot of hot cacao. The clay vessel is deep red with black motifs. Her hand moves slowly and steadily, whipping up a thick layer of foam. The warm cacao aroma mingles with the scent of roasted maize, creating a sweet, earthy fragrance that makes you want to close your eyes and breathe deeply. In the Maya world, maize is food. Cacao is spirit. Together, they form the rhythm of life. A commoner's daily meal might be maize cakes, chili, beans, and forest fruit. But during festivals or noble feasts, cacao was mixed with maize, honey, fragrant woods, becoming a drink that was lightly sweet, subtly bitter, smooth on the tongue, and warm in the chest. Venture deeper into the village, and you'll find small clay beehives where the Maya kept stingless bees for honey. Their honey-flavored cacao served as offerings and treated illnesses. Every drop represented a dry season's worth of patience. They lived without plow animals, without wheels, without iron. But they knew how to use every gift the rainforest offered. Pass by a Maya hearth, hear the wood crackling, see black clay pots steaming, see tiny golden maize tortillas grilling on a flat stone. And you understand that Maya life thrives in gentle, simple rhythms. A family eats dinner by firelight. Children help grind maize dough for tortillas. A wildcat cries faintly in the distance. Insects hum around the house. Everything moves softly, slowly, like a long, steady breath. Because they knew how to feed their people, the Maya had enough strength to build temples, hold ceremonies, trade across vast distances, wage wars, and sustain their civilization for millennia. And one more truth. The forest was never their enemy. It was their home. They understood every plant, every insect, every sign of rain, every small change in the ground. Where modern people see chaos, the Maya saw order. Where we see danger, they saw opportunity. They lived with the forest, not against it. And the ice forest fed them, hid them, protected them from the outside world for centuries. As you leave the imagined village and walk down a path strewn with dry leaves, you begin to understand how the Maya grew so powerful. They read the sky for rain. They listen to the earth for seasons. They used the smallest things to create the greatest. But peace never lasts forever. Maya city-states did not exist as isolated, gentle islands. Between them were rivalries, ambitions, profitable trade routes, and the honor of their kings. and when two city-states met not for trade or ceremony, but deep in the forest, war came. As you leave behind the maize fields and the warm hearths of Maya villages, when the rhythmic sound of grinding corn fades into the deeper hum of the forest, you begin to hear something else, a lower pulse, heavier, like an echo rising from the earth itself. For even though the Maya lived in harmony with the forest, they were never completely free from another part of life, war. The Maya city-states were not a single unified empire. They were like independent stars scattered across the night sky, each shining in its own way. Tikal, Calakmul, Palenque, Copan, Quirigua. Each name a power, a pride, a fragment of authority spread across the vast jungle. And when two stars sought to outshine each other, the darkness between them began to stir. Imagine a mist-heavy morning in the forest, not children playing, not corn being ground, but the footsteps of dozens of Maya warriors moving through the trees, quiet, steady, breath merging with the cold dawn air. They wore no metal armor. Their protection was thick quilted cotton, light when wet, rigid when dry. No steel swords. Their weapons were wooden spears tipped with black obsidian, short bows, curved blades, and stone-studded clubs, black, glossy, sharp, cold. In the dim jungle light, obsidian glints with a violet-blue sheen, like the eye of a predator waiting in the shadows. They did not shout. They did not beat their shields. The Maya entered battle in a strange, disciplined silence. Drums sounded only at the beginning, then stopped, leaving the forest itself to guide their steps. But that silence was not peace. It was the silence before a storm, a silence so heavy you instinctively hold your breath. A Maya battlefield was not an open plain. It was the jungle. Trees blocked sunlight, moisture hung in the air. A falling leaf could be the signal of an arrow cutting through the mist. When two armies clashed, the sound was not cinematic thunder. It was the crack of obsidian meeting obsidian, the hiss of arrows through humid air, feet pressing into layers of damp leaves, sharp breaths, fast, trembling, determined. The Maya fought not to slaughter, but to capture. Enemy kings and elite warriors were the true prizes. They needed captives for rituals. Destruction was not the goal. Capture was. This made Maya warfare eerie in a very distinctive way, not floods of blood, but a hunt, a deadly chase through trees where every sound could be a trap and every figure might vanish into vegetation in an instant. A Tikal warrior sprints between thick trunks, spear in hand, breath sharp, eyes blazing. Behind him, a Calakmul warrior follows like a shadow, stepping on fallen leaves without making a sound. Two hunters in a forest of shadows. No one wants noise. No one wants to break the rhythm of the jungle. They fight with patience, precision, calculation. Sometimes a ray of sunlight cuts through the canopy and flashes across a warrior's painted mask. The Maya painted their faces for war, red, blue, black, becoming the sacred animal or spirit whose power they sought. A warrior whose face is painted black and white like a skull can freeze you in place even without moving. Another, painted entirely in blue, becomes an embodiment of Chak, the rain god. They fought not only with weapons, but with symbols, with the belief that God stood behind them. In such moments, the jungle seems to hold its breath. No birdsong, no wind, only the pounding heartbeats of people who know that one wrong move ends everything. When an army won, they did not celebrate wildly. They returned with captives, bound with woven fiber ropes, walking in long lines. People stood along the roads, not shouting, not throwing stones, but watching with solemn eyes, because they knew captives were not simply enemies. They were part of ritual, part of the cosmic flow. Sometimes even a king was captured. Then the moment became both grand and chilling. The king, bound, was brought before a great temple. Firelight flickered across his face while the people stood silent as stone. No gloating, no mockery, only silence. A silence heavy with the weight of the jungle, tradition, and the gods. It was a moment in which deep forest, ancient stone, and human fate merged into one. But war also had its brutal logic. The victor gained trade routes, cacao sources, obsidian quarries, salt marshes, and water supplies. The defeated lost land, authority, kings. In periods of intense conflict, wars dragged on for decades. Alliances shifted, friends became rivals, rivals became momentary partners. Tikal and Calakmul battled across generations. Quirigua overturned Copan in a rare, stunning ambush. Every battle became a glyph on stone, recorded in Maya writing as a lesson for the future. Yet none of these wars diminished the beauty of the civilization. If anything, they added depth. A civilization that not only built, but defended. That planted maize and raised spears when necessary. And when war subsided, the jungle returned to its steady breath. Insects hummed again. The wind resumed its wandering, as if the forest had merely paused its breathing for a very long moment. Then, when peace returned, the trade routes reopened, and that leads us to the next story. The merchants, salt and cacao flowing across the land, and canoes gliding along the Caribbean coast. After the days when the Igi jungle burned with war, after the sound of obsidian striking, obsidian faded into the wind, after the footsteps of warriors no longer echoed along the forest paths, the Maya returned to their second nature, connection. For beyond warfare and ritual, there was another force that kept the Maya world strong for centuries. That force was trade. You may look at an ancient map of the Maya region and see hundreds of city-states scattered across the Central American rainforest. But do not let the jungle deceive you. The Maya did not live like isolated islands. On the contrary, they were connected by trade routes that cut through forests, marshlands, mountains, and all the way to the Caribbean Sea. And that network moved like the lifeblood of a vast organism. Let us begin at the sea. A windless night, a star-filled sky, soft, low, even waves. A long wooden canoe, carved from the trunk of a ceiba tree, glides over the water like a dark shadow. The vessel is not large, but sturdy. Inside, 7 or 8 Maya merchants sit quietly. They wear light cotton garments and cloth head wraps. On board are bundles wrapped in palm leaves tied with hemp rope. The air carries the scent of salt, resin, and a faint bitterness of cacao. These merchants can travel hundreds of kilometers along the Yucatan coast. They carry news, they carry goods, they carry stories from distant lands that will later be retold in far-off city-states. When their canoe reaches a coastal village, people gather with torches in hand. The goods are unloaded with care, as gentle as the way the Maya lived with forest and sea. Now, open those bundles. You will find salt, more precious than gold in the rainforest. Inland, salt was terribly scarce, and without salt, survival itself became fragile. The Maya used it to preserve meat for trade, for offerings, for medicine. Entire trade routes existed solely to move salt, and those routes made coastal settlements prosperous and powerful. Beside the salt is cacao. A sack of cacao beans was a form of currency. With one sack, you could buy rare feathers, fine ceramics, even razor-sharp obsidian tools. Next is obsidian. Black volcanic glass, polished and sharp as midnight. Obsidian did not exist everywhere. It came only from specific volcanic regions, which made those mines strategic treasures of the Maya economy. An obsidian blade could slice flesh with the gentleness of water. A set of obsidian tools could turn a craftsman into an artist. No city-state wished to be without it. Then comes jade, green, cool, gleaming like drops of forest water. No stone was loved by the Maya more than jade. It became masks, jewelry, sacred objects. A small jade bead could be exchanged for a month's worth of food. Alongside jade came shells, rare feathers, incense, hardwoods, and other luxuries. Now imagine yourself standing in an ancient Maya marketplace. There is no shouting, no chaotic trading as we know it, only small groups speaking softly, examining goods with poise, their hands weighing items by touch. On a palm leaf mat, a merchant displays small ceramic masks, obsidian bracelets, and strings of jade beads. Buyers kneel to inspect every carved detail. If they approve, they trade with cacao beans or forest products. No quarrels, no haggling. Everything unfolds slowly, like the breath of the forest. But Maya trade did not happen only by sea. Deep in the jungle, white stone roads, Sakbi, connected one city-state to another. These were limestone highways, unnervingly straight, cutting through the rainforest like glowing arrows. Maya merchants walked hundreds of kilometers along these Sakbi, carrying goods, messages, and even rituals. If you imagine walking along a Sakbe at dusk, the white stone reflects the pale moonlight. You hear steady footsteps. You see bundles tied to the backs of traders. They walk in silence because the forest is always listening. They walk quickly, but never hurried. For trade is not a race, but a rhythm. Some caravans traveled in larger groups with guards, not because of wild animals, but because of rivals lying in ambush. An inner-city conflict made trade risky. Yet despite this, the Maya trade network persisted. It fed distant cities. It gave artisans their materials. It supplied kings with ritual offerings. It gave farmers access to salt. It kept the entire civilization connected as one living body. There's a beautiful image to hold on to. A Maya merchant asleep in his canoe, under a sky full of stars, his head resting on a sack of cacao, the waves tapping gently against the hull like the lullaby of the forest mother. One hand still placed on the goods, as if protecting something more important than wealth, his honor and his craft. When he wakes, the horizon is tinged pink. He tightens the ropes, adjusts the bundles, pushes the canoe into the green turquoise water, and begins another journey. Little does he know that he, an anonymous figure in the vastness of the jungle, is one of the people who kept the Maya civilization from ever falling apart. Trade made the Maya strong. War wounded them, but trade healed. And through trade, Maya culture spread into carvings, ceramics, masks, and rituals. Because of trade, Maya art blossomed, and that is the next chapter. After the merchant caravans left the coast, after sacks of cacao were opened in distant city-states, after jade and obsidian passed into the hands of artisans, the Maya world shifted into an entirely different rhythm, the rhythm of art. If you ever thought the Maya were only warriors, priests, and pyramid builders, you will be surprised. For when you step into their cultural life, you find subtleties so exquisite they leave modern observers speechless. Maya art is not loud, not flashy. It is soft, profound, precise, filled with symbols and touched by spiritual light. Imagine stepping into an ancient Maya plaza. Dawn mist still drifts low. The first rays of sunlight fall like threads of gold across the stone. Ground. On the walls of a great temple, the relief carvings begin to glow. These lines are carved so delicately that you can almost feel the artisan's hand lingering there, just a breath away from your own. They carved kings as gods, warriors in poised stances, the patterns of forest leaves, jade blossoms, maize, fire, and wind. No line strays from nature. No detail is wasted. Every stroke is a story. You walk deeper into a stone corridor. There you find murals, especially those at Bonampak. Maya murals are unlike Egyptian or Greek art. Their colors are strong, the lines bold, yet the emotion is unmistakably vivid. They painted festivals, dances, musicians, captives, nobles, and daily life. Some murals show dozens of musicians playing conch shell trumpets, drums, flutes, and rattles. Maya music was not gentle like meditation music. It was deep and resonant, like the jungle echoing through itself. Close your eyes and you might hear a distant drum roll threading through the canopy. Maya art was not only painted or carved, it lived in ceramics. Every vessel was a story made of earth. They painted gods, dancers, scenes from the Popol Vuh, or a king at his coronation. Imagine holding a Maya pot in your hands. It's lighter than you expect. Its curves flow like forest water. The red, black, and yellow pigments blend like firelight on temple walls. One pot tells of the hero twins descending into Xibalba, Another shows a king raising his eyes toward Venus. Another simply paints a single blooming jungle flower. But all of them are alive. Then there are the masks. Jade masks, the pinnacle of Maya craftsmanship. A piece of jade, cool as deep well water, is shaped into the face of a god or an ancestor. No other stone holds a soul quite like jade. When light passes through it, jade does not shine like glass. It glows softly, like mist over a spring. Few civilizations in human history ever worked jade with such mastery. Archaeologists often say, holding a Maya jade mask is like holding the sleeping rainforest in the palm of your hand. But there's another art form that astonished the world, the Maya ball game, pak to pak. Imagine a ball court, nothing like a modern stadium. A narrow stone field lies between two high walls. Circular stone rings hang meters above the ground. This was not just sport, it was ritual, a miniature version of the cosmos. The rubber ball was heavy, fast, almost alive. Players struck it with hips, thighs, and shoulders, not with hands. If the ball passed through the stone ring, it was a moment so rare it bordered on the miraculous. Imagine attending a game under a full moon. Moonlight falls over the court like a sheet of silver dust. Players in thick cotton gear and painted faces move like swift, bright spirits. The ball hits the wall with a thud that echoes like a heartbeat. The crowd is silent. Only the ball and the breath of players fill the air. One strike is a pulse of the universe, one rebound a reenactment of myth, sun and moon colliding in ancient stories. The game was not simple entertainment. It maintained cosmic order. Some stories say the winners, not the losers, were sacrificed, for victory meant they were worthy of offering their souls to the gods, not punishment, but honor. Though scholars still debate this, the image remains haunting and sacred. Maya art also lived in dance. They danced with feathers, shells, and turtle shell rattles. Every movement had meaning. Every step echoed drums, rain, and the breath of the forest. During festivals, torchlight flickered across brilliant costumes. When dancers spun, feathers shimmered like butterflies glowing in the night. Conch shell flutes sang long, winding notes like wind through a cave. Drums beat slow and steady. Tiny bells chimed softly, like droplets landing on leaves. That is Maya art. Not merely beautiful, but filled with soul. Every line, mask, carving, and dance carried the breath of forest and God. As you leave the imagined ball court and the drum beats fade, you step onto a path leading out of the city. The forest surrounds you again, its arms, old but warm, wrapping around the pyramids like an ancient embrace. And then, a quiet thought enters your mind. If Maya cities were once this radiant, what happened to dim their brilliance? For if Maya art shone so brightly, why do we see only ruins today? The answer lies in the next chapter, a somber one, like dawn mist settling over a temple's peak. After the vibrant festivals, after the drumbeats of pak to pak echoed like the heartbeat of the city, you might think the Maya would continue building. More pyramids, more plazas, more neighborhoods spreading into the forest. But then, something strange happened. One morning, the sun still rose as usual. The mist still rested on the stone steps. Monkeys still swung from branch to branch, and toucans still called hoarsely from the high canopy. But in the central plaza, something was missing. No voices, no sound of wooden mallets striking stone, no children running across the courtyard, no merchants whispering over cacao prices, only wind. You walk along a white Sac-Bay causeway where hundreds once passed each day. Now, a thin layer of leaves covers it, as if the forest were trying to hide something. A wooden door hangs ajar, creaking softly in the breeze with a dry, lonely sound. Hearths have gone cold. Stone pots lie scattered. On a wooden table rest several half-shucked cobs of corn, abandoned as though the family left just the night before. A strange feeling slips into you. The city did not die slowly. It vanished as if someone had blown out a candle. But what happened? Modern scholars propose many theories. War, famine, population growth beyond capacity, decades-long droughts, the weakening of noble authority, or a breakdown in the rituals believed to keep the world in balance. Yet when you stand in the vast plazas of Tikal, Palenque, or Copan, places where tens of thousands once lived, the feeling you get is not just a historical hypothesis. It feels like a mystery. You stand at the base of a pyramid. The stones are enormous, impossible to imagine thousands of farmers hauling them upward to build this structure. You almost hear echoes of coronations, drums, conch shell trumpets. But they are only echoes. As you climb one moss-covered step, you find a small surprise waiting. Not human remains, not ceremonial objects, but a plant. A tiny sprout, no bigger than your little finger, bright green, pushing up from a crack in the stone where kings and priests once walked. No one notices it. But that tiny sprout foretold the fate of the entire city. A seedling growing in silence, a root slipping into the space between two stones, a thin vine wrapping gently around a statue. The forest is never hurried. The forest is patient. Day after day, roots press deeper, slowly prying stones apart. Vines embrace walls, tightening like the arms of time itself. Leaves spread overhead, shading the stone, cooling it, moistening it. Moss blooms, then decays. Everything happens so slowly humans cannot see it. But when the population dwindled and the Maya left, the forest needed only one more thing: the silence of people. A decade, 2 decades, a century. That was enough. The pyramids returned to the forest. The temples became green mounds. The palaces turned to dust. Stone stelae became so thick with moss that the carvings vanished. Some city-states survived for centuries after the collapse, but the brilliance was gone. No strong kings, no grand rituals, no vast trade networks. The forest had won, through patience. You walk to another plaza. In the middle of the grass, a single stone column leans slightly. A bird lands on it and sings, a clear note over what was once the throne of a Maya king. Another thought slips in. The Maya did not vanish. Their cities were not destroyed by enemies. No great fire consumed them. No crimson omen split the sky. The people simply left. The forest stayed. And time completed the rest. You imagine the footsteps of the last Maya family leaving their city, packing belongings, calling their children, stepping onto the forest trail that would take them away from the place they once called home. The wind blows a little harder, as if trying to pull them back, but fails. In the shadows of the forest, the city still stands. No voices remain, only birds, wind, and leaves. And sometimes, the faint sound of a stone falling as a root pushes deeper into the old foundations. This was the collapse of the classic Maya, not an extinction, but a quiet disappearance, a fading into silence, like a giant lying down for a long sleep. But the story does not end there. For as the forest swallowed the old cities, far to the north, on bright white limestone plains, new centers began to rise. And that is where the next chapter leads. When the great cities of the classic era were slowly swallowed by the forest, when Tikal, Palenque, and Copan were reduced to birdsong and moss, one might think the Maya light had faded completely. But even in that seemingly dark age, somewhere else, embers were glowing, ready to flare up again, not by old kings, not by thousands of farmers, but by the movement of the Maya spirit itself. They did not disappear. They simply continued onward. If the ancient southern lowlands sank into silence, then the north, especially the Yucatan Peninsula, began to hear a different sound. The sound of stone being set upon stone. The sound of wooden mallets striking fresh-cut limestone. The sound of merchants returning with salt, jade, and cacao. The sound of ritual drums echoing through new plazas. And under the harsh sunlight of that limestone land, a city began to rise, bright enough to challenge the shadows that had consumed the old capitals. That city was Chichen Itza. Imagine stepping into it on a morning, no thick mist like in the southern jungles. Here, sunlight comes early, sharp, and strong. White limestone slabs reflect the light so intensely that from afar they look like water. Chichen Itza did not grow slowly like the ancient cities. It blazed upward, quick and powerful, like a flame fanned by Caribbean winds. The first thing you see is El Castillo, or the Temple of Kukulkan, the most famous stepped pyramid in the Maya world. Unlike the moss-covered temples hidden in forest gloom, El Castillo stands boldly on a vast stone platform, its white limestone gleaming like serpent scales. Every step is a breath of time. Every face of the pyramid is a face of the cosmos. And the most wondrous moment comes twice each year, the spring and autumn equinox. When the sun begins to set, the shadows of the steps fall along the pyramid's side, forming alternating light and dark segments. These segments link together, creating the body of a great serpent slithering down from the summit toward a carved stone serpent head at the base, a sight that astonishes the modern world. But to the Maya, it was simply their way of speaking with the sun. You can sit quietly on the stone ground, close your eyes, and imagine the soft murmurs of hundreds of Maya gazing upward as Kukulkan, the feathered serpent, returns. Not fear. Reverence, a moment where sky and earth touch in silence. Chichen Itza had more than the pyramid. It had a plaza of stone columns, like a forest of petrified reeds, the largest Paktapak ball court in the entire Maya region, the Temple of the Warriors, lined with carved warrior pillars standing as silent guardians, the sacred cenote, a vast sinkhole where offerings were given to the rain god. That cenote is deep, round, with dark green water cold enough to raise goosebumps. The Maya believed it was an eye of the underworld gazing upward. They cast offerings into it, jade rings, gold figurines, exquisite ceramics, not to lose them, but to return them to the gods who gave them rain and earth. Chichen Itza burned brightly for a few centuries. It became the greatest commercial, religious, and astronomical center in the region. The Maya here traded with the southern lowlands, the Caribbean coast, and cultures even farther away. But like every flame, it could not burn forever. When Chichen Itza weakened, another center rose to take its place, Mayapan. If Chichen Itza was a blazing fire, then Mayapan was a steady, glowing coal. It was smaller, less grand, but became the last major political capital of the Maya. Mayapan had city walls, rare in Maya architecture, more fortress than open metropolis. Life there was stricter, more regulated, but also steadier during difficult times. In Mayapan's plazas, you find miniatures of Chichen Itza, a small replica of the Temple of Kukulkan, modest ball courts, stone ritual rings, stelae carved with lineages and ceremonies, as if the Maya here were compressing the memory of a golden age into a smaller, more manageable form, holding onto it as the world changed around them. Mayapan lasted until the 15th century. When Europeans had not yet set foot in Central America, the Maya were still holding festivals, carving stone, and recording time with their ancient calendars. The surprising truth is this: even though many old city-states collapsed, the Maya civilization never truly died. It simply shifted. From the deep jungle to the brighter north, from vast pyramids to scaled-down echoes, from grand rituals to family and village ceremonies, like an underground river, flowing quietly but never drying up. The Maya journey after the classic era was a story of adaptation, and that is what kept their civilization alive. Soft as water, enduring as stone, when you leave Mayapan in your imagination, the sun has lowered. Golden light settles softly on the stone. Evening birds call lazily. A gentle wind carries the scent of forest and warm limestone. But far on the horizon, you see white sails approaching the coast, small, distant, but unfamiliar. A new world is coming, and that is the story of the next chapter. As evening settled over the stone walls of Mayapan, as the last birdsong dissolved into the thin veil of night, the Maya along the Yucatan coast continued living in their familiar rhythm. They wove nets by the shore, torches flickering in the sand like small blossoms of fire. They patched boats, brought home silver-gleaming fish, and traded stories about the coming rains and the gods. And on the distant horizon, where sea and cloud blended together, something small appeared, yet unlike anything the Maya had ever known. A single white speck, then two, then three. The specks grew larger, bright against the blue Caribbean, like strange birds wandering into the realm of Kukulkan. No one knew that this moment would open an entirely new chapter, one filled with upheaval, yet as quietly heavy as the final breath of a long day. On the white beach, a Maya fisherman paused. He narrowed his eyes toward the sea, his heart beat light, like a thin breeze brushing the eaves of fate. The approaching vessels looked nothing like Maya boats. Maya canoes were small, low, carved from single tree trunks, gliding across the water like leaves. But these were as tall as floating houses, their wooden hulls massive, their white sails swelling like clouds shaped by some unfamiliar hand. The Maya had legends of gods who walked between sky and earth, but none about houses that moved across the sea. As the ships drew nearer, the beach grew so quiet that even the sound of waves against the rocks became sharp and clear. The fisherman stood still, net in hand, sea wind lifting his long black hair. He did not run. He did not panic. The Maya were used to facing the mysterious, night rituals, myths of rebirth, stories of the underworld. But what stood before him was something entirely different. Strangers stepping down from the ships, pale-skinned, clad in shining metal armor, holding weapons long and sharp and made of steel. The sound of their armor clinking was strange, like stones singing under moonlight. The Spaniards, the conquistadors, did not know they were facing a civilization that had lived for millennia with the forest, with stone, with the sky. A civilization that did not collapse like ash in the wind, but retreated into deep forests when necessary. Their first encounter was not a clash. It was silence. A silence in which two worlds simply looked at each other, both trying to understand what realm the other belonged to. The Spaniards brought iron, gunpowder, disease, and ambition. The Maya responded with their knowledge of the forest, their endurance, and their faith woven deeply into every breath. But the force that changed history was not the steel blade. It was something invisible. Disease. European illnesses, smallpox, measles, influenza, drifted into Maya lands like a quiet intruder that knew how to hide, like tiny roots slipping into a crack in stone, slow but certain, so that by the time anyone noticed, it was too late. Not the battlefield, but the small houses in every village became the front line, where one Maya fell ill, then another, then an entire community. The silence of the classic collapse returned. But now not because cities were abandoned, but because disease was sweeping through every doorway. The Maya fought, not with obsidian blades or short bows, but with rituals, prayers, charms, and pots of herbal medicine made from forest roots. Yet the world had changed. City-states that survived into the 16th century now faced an enemy they could not touch. The Spaniards continued pressing inland. Some places fell quickly, others resisted for decades. Because the Maya forest does not yield easily. Swamps, insects, heavy rains, paths that vanished beneath leaves. Nature fought alongside the Maya. Each time a conquistador burned a village, the forest grew back into the ashes. Each time they seized a stone city, the Maya slipped deeper into mountains and jungles, into places no European map could capture. The conquest of the Maya lasted far longer than in most of the Americas because the Maya did not surrender, though their cities eventually faded into shadow. Yet, the most surprising part of this chapter is not the loss. It is the endurance of the Maya spirit. Even when great monuments were no longer built, even when the last kings fell, the Maya kept their language, their festivals, their instruments, their weaving, their ancestor rites. They did not disappear. They blended into the forest, into small villages, into nighttime hearths, into whispered prayers beneath candlelight. They survived by changing. And when the Spaniards believed they had conquered the land completely, they did not realize the truth. The Maya had only stepped back so they could endure for another 1,000 years in the quiet, steadfast breath of the forest. When the white ships had anchored along the shores of Yucatan, when the clatter of metal armor had become a familiar sound in the coastal villages, the Maya were forced to confront something far more terrifying than disease or conquest: the disappearance of memory. In every Maya city, large or small, there were always special houses that ordinary people rarely entered, not because they were forbidden, but because they were sacred. These were the houses of writing, of knowledge, of the bark paper books, the codices, made from tree sap, coated with white lime, folded many times like an ancient accordion. Inside those pages were calendars, astronomy, medicine, mythology, royal histories, auspicious and inauspicious days, agricultural cycles. These were not simply books. They were the soul of the Maya, recorded in black and red ink, in curved, square, and spiral glyphs filled with meaning. A library of an entire civilization. But when the Spaniards arrived, they saw something else. To them, those glyphs were sorcery. Those divine stories were heresy. Those astronomical records were threats to the new order. And so, a tragic chapter began. Imagine a dark night in Mani, in the land of Yucatan. Wind rustles through tall palm trees, carrying the smell of damp earth, tree resin, and smoke. In the center of the plaza, a great fire burns, roaring like a beast fed with dry wood. The flames crackle, the wind howls softly, like voices lamenting from the forest. Beside the fire lie the bark paper books, dozens, then hundreds, collected from villages, temples, noble houses, each book a life, each page a memory. The Maya stand watching. They do not scream, do not fight back, not because they accept it, but because they know some battles cannot be stopped with obsidian blades or arrows. A Spanish friar, Diego de Landa, stands before the flames. In his journal, he writes that he burned the books because they were filled with the lies of the devil. But to the Maya, every glyph was a breath of an ancestor. Imagine the moment the first pages catch fire, glyphs curling under the heat, drawings of gods fading in the flames before disappearing, red ink turning brown, then black, records of eclipses, of Venus cycles, of herbal medicine, of ancient kings and their dates, all rising into the air like spirits blown away by wind. An elderly Maya woman places her hand over her chest. She does not cry, but her eyes carry a pain as deep as limestone. She knows she is witnessing something far worse than the loss of land, the loss of the voices of the ancestors. Children hide behind their parents, pale with confusion. They don't understand why something so beautiful is considered dangerous. They hear only the crackle of burning paper, like the snapping of dry bones in the night. The Spaniards do not realize they are destroying one of the greatest intellectual treasures of the Americas. Those books held astronomical calendars accurate enough to predict eclipses. They held medical knowledge of forest plants, remedies made from leaves, sap, roots. They held myths so old that even oral storytelling could not preserve them perfectly. They held the long count calendar, the system of timekeeping that once astonished the modern world. As the fire dies down, ash rises. It floats into the forest, into small houses, into the eyes of those watching, and into a chapter of history we can never fully recover. After that night, only a few codices survived, through strange luck. Some were taken to Europe as curiosities, some hidden in monasteries, some forgotten in dusty libraries. Today, only 4 are recognized: Dresden, Madrid, Paris, and Grolier. 4 thin books carrying the weight of all that remained of a civilization once as brilliant as the stars. Just 4 among thousands that burned. But here is what brings quiet comfort. The Maya did not allow memory to vanish completely. They continued telling stories. They kept rituals, preserved their language, held the light of their ancestors in nighttime songs. They hid knowledge in woven patterns, in embroidered motifs, in the rhythm of ceremonial drums. They taught children the stories no books could record, so the next generation would know where they came from. The ashes of the books drifted away on the wind, but the spirit carried by those ashes clung to the earth, to the forest, and to the people themselves. And that is why, even though the pages burned, the Maya never died. They simply changed the way they preserved their memory. After the flames that burned the books, after the clatter of conquistador armor echoed across Yucatan, many believed the Maya had reached their final chapter. But if you walk slowly through the mountains of Guatemala, the highlands of Chiapas, and the small villages of Belize and Honduras, you will discover a very different truth. The Maya never disappeared. They are still here, in every thread of cloth, in every step, in every word, in every festival. Imagine a morning in a modern Maya village. Sunlight falls softly onto palm-thatched roofs. Roosters call across the hills. Inside a small house, an elderly woman sits in front of a wooden loom. Her hands move slowly but surely, weaving red, blue, and yellow threads into a cloth that is slowly coming alive. These patterns are not random. Each motif is a tradition, a story inherited from the ancestors. The zigzag lines represent the serpent god Kukulkan. The round dots represent corn kernels. The tiny triangular shapes are mountains, tiny echoes of the ancient pyramids now sleeping beneath the forest. She cannot read ancient codices, but her hands remember the entire archive once carved on stone. She teaches her granddaughter when to pull the thread, when to change colors, when to pause and breathe, like the breathing rhythm of a civilization woven into daily life. Step outside, and you will hear voices. Not entirely Spanish, but dozens of Maya languages still spoken today. Quiche, Yucatec, Mam, Itza, Quechi, Tzotzil. Each language is an ancient branch, still growing, still sprouting leaves despite the centuries. Maya children today may learn Spanish at school, but at home, the language between them and their grandparents returns to the cadence of the ancestors. Rounded syllables, steady pauses, soft and deep like stones, gently knocking together in ancient temple courtyards. In the afternoon, as the sun begins to fall, familiar sounds rise again, sounds that have existed for hundreds of years. People prepare for festivals. Men carve wooden masks painted in bright colors. Ocelots, toucans, rain gods, ancient warriors. These masks are not decorations. They are meant for dancing. When night arrives, drums begin. Conch shells call out long, lingering notes, and dancers enter the village square. Their steps are light but grounded, firm, like greetings sent from the ancestors. In the firelight, embroidered garments shimmer. You will recognize patterns identical to those on ancient reliefs at Palenque, Copan, Tikal. No one commands them to keep these designs. There is no king, no priest demanding it. Yet they keep them, because it is more than culture. It is heartbeat. Travel a bit farther and you will find Maya farmers planting corn the same way their ancestors did 3,000 years ago. They still honor the maize god. They still thank Chac, the rain god, when the rainy season comes. They still see meals of tortillas, hot cacao, chilies, and squash as sacred continuities of tradition. In many families, evening is a gentle moment. Everyone gathers around the hearth. Children sit close to their mother while their grandfather tells the Popol Vuh, the great Maya epic, the twin heroes, their descent into the underworld, their ball game against the lords of death. No book survives to record these tales fully, but spoken words lull listeners into sleep as if ancient gods sit quietly in the corner, listening and smiling. You begin to understand. The Maya do not lie in stone ruins. They live in every home, in every small drumbeat, in every footstep pressed into soft brown earth. They live in the eyes of children who look up at the night sky, where the constellations of their ancestors still shine unchanged. Visit their local markets, and you will see modern Maya merchants selling goods almost identical to those of 1,000 years ago. Dried cacao, sea salt, small wooden masks, jade-colored bracelets, vibrant woven cloth. They talk, laugh, bargain, exchange news, no different from the trading canoes that once traveled the Caribbean coast. Even in modern architecture, Maya roots remain. Low houses with sloping roofs, wide courtyards for ceremonies, a ceiba tree planted at the village center, the world tree connecting the three realms. They carry the past quietly, steadily, as naturally as evening breath. The most surprising moment comes when you look at tourist sites, the restored pyramids, the temples open to visitors. Guides speak passionately about calendars, gods, astronomy, and you realize they are Maya themselves, the next generation. They explain the wisdom of their ancestors in Spanish, English, and even in ancient Maya. A circle closed. Knowledge once burned, now retold in calm, confident voices beneath golden sunlight. And this is what settles beautifully in your heart. The Maya did not merely survive. The Maya continue, living in their own way. As you leave the modern Maya villages, with the echo of ceremonial drums still lingering behind you, like the warm heartbeat of a civilization that never truly faded, your journey brings you back to where every story began, the top of a pyramid. No festival sounds remain, no footsteps, no incense smoke drifting in the air, only night, a night so soft, so deep, so open. You sit on a high stone step where the breeze glides past your shoulders as gently as a hand resting lightly upon you. The stone beneath you is cool, carrying the breath of thousands of years. Above, the sky stretches wide, each star brightening slowly, like tiny flames once lit by the Maya astronomer priests. They stood exactly where you sit now, gazing at this same sky, recording the cycles of Venus, the moon, the sun, offering the gift of time to their entire civilization. In the silence, you suddenly understand something very simple. All these stories, pyramids, wars in the deep forest, merchants crossing the Caribbean, rituals to the Maize god, books burned to ash, villages weaving bright patterns, belong to a single unbroken current. Even when changed, even when fractured, that current has flowed all the way to today. It is in the wind you hear. It is in the quiet night embracing you. It is in the trembling light of the stars the Maya once named, stars that lulled countless generations into sleep. The forest breathes beneath you. The wind carries the scent of damp earth, warm limestone, and the faint sweetness of ceiba leaves, the world tree that the Maya believed connected heaven and earth. Insects buzz softly, forming a steady, gentle hum, like the breathing of the forest itself. The entire space seems to whisper, "Relax. There is nothing left to hurry for." If you close your eyes just a little, you might imagine ancient priests walking slowly across the temple courtyard, holding bundles of incense, their cloaks swaying with the light wind. No chanting, no ceremony, only the sacred stillness of spirits who once lived, loved, and dreamed in this land. And then, as your breath falls into rhythm with the breath of the night, you feel something like an invisible embrace settling around you, light, warm, and utterly peaceful. The Maya stories have reached their end. They no longer need to enchant or mystify. They need only become a place for your mind to rest. The sky above still shines with the stars the Maya watched for countless generations. But now, they no longer call you to stay awake. They glimmer like small lanterns guiding you toward sleep. Breathe slowly, slower still. Let the ancient stone beneath you, the night breeze around you, and the sky full of stars lull you gently. The Maya once heard the heartbeat of the universe. And you only need to close your eyes. The night will take care of the rest.